Alrighty then. Welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. A big day for the Federal Reserve, also financials. We'll look at a bunch of charts here today. Also, it is my last video until I return on the 29th of September. That's next Monday. So today we will do ETF wrap-up edition. I will also wrap up the past 5 days like we usually do for the week, wrapping up the day as well, the multiple Sigma movers. There were a couple. And we'll wrap up the year-over-year big movers. A return to normalcy here. I think if you know what I mean, there's no surprises or anything like that. It's the usual 20-25 stories back. You'll see at the end of the program. So, like I said, today, Trading Trends edition. Today, China Internet was the big story. The KWEB jumped about 3%. Some of these Chinese stocks continue to be on fire. Like I said, today's ETF edition, so we're not going to go into specifically Baidu and those kinds of stocks, but we called them out a couple of weeks ago as the China looked ripe. It is not a flash in the pan story. A year now since Xi announced that stimulus, and things look absolutely great there. KWEB with a big move. We'll take a look at that chart. Copper miners, not so good. That was down 1 1/3%. Commodities got hit today and new all-time highs for. Let me take a breath. It's not in the usual areas, but it's financials. Gold hit a new all-time high. EFA, the developed markets. XLY, that's discretionary. So you're thinking Amazon and Tesla. The Dow hit a new all-time high. Also Japan, value, and Canada. So we have many spaces that went higher today. And then, like I said, we're going to recap the past 5 days. This week, when you look back at the past 5, was characterized by 6% advances, roughly more than 1% a day average gain in the Chinese internet space. So we're looking at KWEB, although the other one called CQQQ is really advancing due to the weight to Baidu, I believe, in that ETF. Also, the Ark ETF has really had a great week. We'll look at that chart. And if it's perfectly ripe here, you know I love it. I've been recommending it under certain price levels. And uranium, a big week for uranium. It's been on fire. All right, so let's take a look at it. I always love Fed Reserve Day. It's pretty unpredictable, even though it's kind of boring. You know what they're going to say and what they're going to do for the most part. Stuff still goes pretty much haywire. So really fast at the single names. Tesla up 1%. I think it continues to look great. One of the best stocks in the market. It's absolutely astonishing. I know it's only up 5% on the year, but this thing is up 87% year over year. It is on fire. NVIDIA gave back 2.5% basically today. Broadcom shed 4%. So just a little bit of gas off a superstar like that. Amazon down 1%. So it really was more so of the Tesla strength and some retail. Oracle down 2%. Continues to chop a little bit around the $300 level, but the thing's had an absolutely on fire week. And BABA, as I said, like the Asian equities can go to move higher. BABA advanced today 2.5% basically. So here's the intraday chart. The 9:30 open, and really was kind of a downward move from the bell. We opened at 660 even, and they took it lower. This is right before Powell spoke. They took it basically at 659, but we went through new kind of progressively slightly lower lows throughout the day. Powell speaks. They cut 25 bips, and they're probably going to do 2 more times, as is pretty much priced into the markets. Stock market went to 662. There is your all-time high at 2 p.m., and then he spoke a little bit at 2:30, and that's usually where some volatility enters, some digestion, some subtraction from the gains. And then that took us to all the way down to 654. Pretty kind of an ugly sell-off for a bit at 2:30 p.m. And then they bought it back to get us. Really, the number I look at is VWAP on the going into the session, which was 659, and afterwards also 659. We did have an above-average volume trading day, about 65 million typically in SPY. We did about 100 million today, so almost 2x, not quite. And then we closed above VWAP. So all in all, a very constructive day, obviously. Then we'll look at the all-time high list on some of these areas. So here's the all-time high for SPY came yesterday. We actually came within 6 cents today at 2 o'clock, and then they said no. So we'll still see. We're 662 yesterday was our reach there, our ceiling, our high watermark. As I said here, especially since this is my sign off for about 2 weeks, I think we're kind of hitting our head. I'll give it to 665 just because I'm seeing new lows and relatively in VXX and stuff like that. But over the next 2 weeks, I'm still looking for, and a lot of folks were looking for it today, me included. I am still looking for a move towards about that 649 level. Now just about 10 points or 1.5% you might not even notice it. You have two down 75 bip days, and that would have been it. And then that will be your invitation to get in. It sounds crazy, but I do want this market to digest a little bit just in terms of time. So I'd rather almost re-enter. I know seasonality is not super supportive going into October, but I'd almost rather enter the market, in 2-ish weeks around the 649. Love your risk level, risk reward at 649 entry for SPY, and that's about it. So top levels maybe hit its head about 665 just due to this expansion here. Again, it's not overbought. You had a divergence there yesterday. You could even get to 69 RSI. And there's a lot of things telling me that you could quickly see it move to 649. And if you do get it either tomorrow or within the next 2 weeks, you should take that invitation because the market is very likely going higher. All right. Let us see what did indeed go higher today in areas. Okay. Only two areas we're going to look at. SPY, like I said, closed down 10 bips. Totally a digestion day from the big indices. The one that moved big, high, bigly, as they say, was the Dow, up 55 bips to new all-time highs. KWEB had a spectacular move here. That is a new 52-week high. That is a lovely. We're back to December 2021, the all-time high here for KWEB. This thing was trading $105 after COVID. So this is more than 2x from here. Everyone's in love with the catch-up trade. Chinese equity is no different. This had a monster gap up today, about 3%. Was Chinese internet. I know they've had very good numbers out of China lately. Chinese internet space is truly overbought since September 9th. I know it's only 8 days, but this is really, since the stock closed above 39.5, it's made standing room only to buy all the way to the 42.70 level. We closed at the absolute high of day today, new 52-week high. Congratulations. Things working very well in China. Give me a second here. My screen is freezing on the other end. Una momento, por favor. Oh, man. This has been a beautiful run. I'm taking this back to the 5th of September, and I'm just in typical cycle. Obviously, it's overbought here, so it could have more lift. But on September the 5th, I have a note here, buy at 37.5. Where was the stock that day? 38.40. So a bit unrealistic. So 38.40 with a target of 39.25. And here we got to it. Did about a day, and then you see a monster gap like this. I think it's done the move like 3-4 days, or I'm sorry, 3-4 points. I personally would not chase this here. I would want to sit this one out for a little bit to an entry around 39.25. It's a heck of a move. It's going to test your patience, and honestly, when the things close at absolute highs like that, it's either you enter or not. This probably goes a little bit higher. It's 45. There's so much overhead going back 4 years for this to go even higher. But a great looking chart. This has had less than 2 weeks worth of closes under a rising 200 moving average. So I love the Chinese internet space. I personally would not chase it here with a 42 handle. If you get in at 39 through some volatility, take it. New 52-week highs for that group. They really ate it up today, up 2.8%. And the only other group they bid up hard was the KBWB Bank Invesco ETF. Very similar to financials, different weighting. This is this basket. The financials, if you own XLF, a lot, even regionals, all the financials really did well today with a rate cut. This group, look at this financial specific basket, excuse me. We bought them here with the U.S. stock market on April 7th at $51. This group was in purgatory from March 11th until May 12th. 2 months legitimately in the penalty box, and then just a return to stardom here. They rejected off the high stay. We did touch 79.25, and then they sold it off. The highs, all-time highs for this ETF are today. Financials, it was an all-time high for the XLF. Are we going to look at that later? We are not. So this will be a representation, basically, of the XLF. This looks good. I want to take immediate setups if possible, right? Because a lot of things I'm saying, wait 2 weeks, it's a little extended, et cetera, et cetera. So when something sets up, I want to do it. This looks like it will enjoy a nice 2 weeks. I agree it was a rejection for today, but this looks like, especially with the candles it's had since entering this overbought period, June 26th, I love the action it's had resolving higher each time. This has a lot of strength in the group. No, there is not a confirmation here. You couldn't even get to 66 in the RSI, so that there's a divergence there. But I do think it has a nice 10 to 14-day run to about the 79.40 level, which would be back to the all-time highs for this group. So 79.40, It's about 80 cents. It's not a ton of meat on the bone, maybe a percent upside, but I do think financials look like they're going to be in a good space for the next 2 weeks. And it's had a very nice, decent day, 1/3%. Okie dokie. Let's look at what they hammered today. There were some spaces. Silver. They really sold off. That was a big move for silver. We said when it moves, it moves. They sold it down 2.1% today. This was at highs, not all-time highs, of course. That goes back to 2011 at $48. I'm looking at the ETF. Yesterday, though, 52-week highs. It went to 39 even, and boom, now we're looking at 37.80, down 2%. They sold gold, too. They sold the miners. We'll take a look at that stuff. I think this begins, I don't know about begins, but more digestion for silver. I think a lot of people want to get into this. Absolutely stellar chart, too. I was making fun of silver a little bit earlier in the year just because gold, I would much rather be in gold. But honestly, an absolutely great looking chart. It really just tested your patience. This was the give and go. The June 5th here was where you'd have to do getting above $32, and then you would have woken up and finally re-entered. Just that's when it really showed strength above the breakout, and that's when you'd really want to be involved. And you can see how quickly it went to 39 after that. Right here, I think it'll take its foot off the gas for a little bit, and I personally would want to, like I said, sit this out for about 2-ish weeks, maybe into the end of the month, and re-enter at about right around, honestly, like right around 36.70, right around there. So about another $1.10 or so. And I do think, again, this group can be volatile at times. Today they hammered it. The low today was 37.36. They bought a little bit off the lows, kind of coinciding with the reversal in the market post Powell, but we'll see. I do think you'll get an opportunity in about 2-ish weeks. You get a 36 handle, and then you could get in. Also, the options for this are pretty cheap, but you really need to move. Be careful if you play SLV options; they're very cheap for a reason. The other area they hammered today, even if the market wasn't ripping, SPY was down 12 bips. Volatility crater today. You're seeing VXX. That is a new 52-week low. That is a big move. That's not nothing for 3.5% volatility. I remember last time Powell spoke, the market really digested what he said, and they just really love what the market's really liking what the market is, what the Fed is doing for the market in terms of stabilization. That's a new 52-week low in volatility. You have massive overhead, the 200-day at 48.38, a level we haven't even been since June 23rd, and we've really had a much more aggressive rotation into the market since the mid-June period. Over the next 2-ish weeks, it's going to not be so pretty, obviously, but I do think you get somewhat of a dead cat bounce to about 35.5, up about $2.30, so about 6-ish%. And then this will continue to go lower. But this is absolutely out of favor. This is oversold again. Which it really started, VXX really started getting sold off. And think about that in terms of the inversion, right? Meaning people were starting getting especially bullish animal spirits in terms of SPY if they're dumping VXX volatility SPY puts downside protection. That really started July 23rd. So we're in a different environment here. VXX is sold off again, so you should be getting aggressive. I'm not saying buy 0 DTE, just upside calls, but that's a 52-week low on VXX. So you should check yourself before you wreck yourself. I think it's a financial term. They hammer that today down 3.5%. And the only other area, really, there were not a ton of areas. It was silver, it was volatility, and this is kind of related to silver. The copper miners, they hit today. And this is not a small move either for this space, down 1.3%. Copper miners have been doing absolutely splendid. This hit a high on the 15th just 2 days ago at 54.37 with an 80 RSI, and now they sold it off a little bit. We're looking at a 53 handle. Let's see. Does this spell opportunity, or what do we do here incoming? Chart looks great. I personally would not chase this here. I think it gets a descent towards about 50.5 in the next 1 to 2 weeks, and then that's going to be your entry to a winning space. But this is a nice little chart here where it was spent much time in purgatory. Do not like, especially with the bullshit that we had experienced in the market, a sliding lower 200-day moving average into a 52-week low in April. No interest to copper miners. But I like seeing when things resurrect. A lot of reasons to be in this name right there on that gap up on June 26th. Just a lot of reasons, because it's at 6-month highs. It's uncharted territory, and you've seen the bullishness going into the market. And this is copper miners, so not mega beta, right? You're not buying a Mag 7 here. And then this went up into the upside. So really your level of spot to take notice here was 45. and then boom, it did test you though. It did go to 47 off that, then to 44, then 47, then here 42 with a sliding 200 moving average. Really would have tested you, and then a nice breakout here above 47 to new 52-week highs, overbought. Stochastic momentum mix hitting stride here. Looks very strong, but just right here, I think it's digesting. Doji today down 1.3. This looks like it has a date at 50.5 in about 1 to 2 weeks, and that's where I would enter probably like 60 delta December calls for an area like this. All right, so they were the losers today. Silver, volatility, and copper miners. They were, big losers. You may have had losers in your portfolio today, but they were to the downside legitimately, and then to the upside, it was Chinese internet and banks. If you have a ticker or something, put it in there, and we'll take a look at it. Top 3 gainers in the past 5 days. Not going to spend a ton of time on this, but Chinese internet has been your absolute star for the past 5 days, up 7%. In the past 5 days has been the absolute best place to be in. I think a lot of people were looking for that breakout above the sheet announcement from last year, above 39.5. You got it, a few days ago. It's been up and away. It had one red day, really digestion down 0.25% on the 12th. That was your invitation, and here we are. Like I said, we already went through the forecast for this in the earlier segment, but great looking chart. Chinese internet, big fan. Next is ARK. This is right on the heels. KWEB was up 7%. This is up 6.8. So right on the heels. ARK hit a new 52-week high today. They did reverse it and it closed down 44 bips. But this touched 81.60. That's a new 52-week high. I'm looking at it almost similarly in terms of the energy. You really want to see this get above 79. And it's had 3 days here. A divergence with not getting to 68 RSI even with a new 52-week high. But I absolutely love this ETF. In terms of levels and where to get in, I just wouldn't do it here. I do think it hits its head around this $80, $81. I'm not a huge buyer of the breakout here. I do want to see these curl a little bit more. It does have momentum, but it's had a nice run going back from here from 74, and trees don't go to the sky. That was about 10%. I want to let it get a little bit of room for digestion. I do think you give this about 2-ish weeks. I know I sound like a tape recorder, and then get in around $76 even, to be frank. But then I'm going to pound the table on it there if you get the opportunity. But this had an absolutely stellar week right behind KWEB. Chinese internet is ARK, both up 7% essentially. And then after that is uranium. So we're not recommending just regular, Mag 7, NVIDIA, type stuff. We're looking at really things that pulled up this week. Uranium off the 52-week high yesterday. Divergence there, 63 RSI only, and then boom, you get a bit of a move down 3.5% today, up 40. What do we say now for the short term forecast for uranium? I again wouldn't chase it here. I do think you get a move towards $42. You see those candles get smaller too, a little bit less excitement. I think they'll take some time to digest this. It's not quite the same as this period back in June when people were really bidding it up like crazy. I do think you have an opportunity to get this with a 40. Honestly, I think if you're patient around 2 weeks, I think you get a 41 handle on this, which is almost at 10% lower from here. And that'll make a big difference in your returns if you're getting into a high flyer like this. So that's my play on uranium would be. A lot of great looking opportunities coming up. Yes, 52-week highs, all-time highs this week. Someone's going to be patient. We're trying to see if some set up. Maybe something contrarian. All right, top 3 losers of the past 5 days. They've not all been winners. Your top loser, the worst place to have been in, and it's a little bit different space, but it's volatility, VXX, the worst place. It's not getting absolutely hammered, but it's down about 3.5% through the ups and downs over the past 5 days. Volatility, the worst place to be. Typically, you just want to be long something if that's the case. We're also looking at a 1 week time frame on that. Number 2 worst place is the homies. So we talked about this before. The home construction, what a rejection on September the 5th, now 12 days ago at 118, and this thing has gone lower now all the way to 110. An important place to look at. So today the Fed did what? Cut rates, should help mortgage demand, applications, This space went down 1%. I do think you have a bit of an oversold buy. I do like the level here. I talked about this a couple days ago. To be very honest with you, under 112. So I know today you got a little bit of a discount. The low today was 109.50, and they took basically a percent off the lows. This is starting to base. Every squirrel gets a nut, still holding a 50 RSI as it has since June. I think I'm finally seeing like an immediate setup. It very likely is going to frustrate you. But I think what's just popping out at me is like a 111, 117 October call spread. Maybe November if you want to do more time. That looks good to me. Obviously, it's contrarian space. This is not an absolute star or a performer. These guys peaked in October of last year, but this looks like it could be worth investment. The only other thing is, I do want to mention red, 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 red. This has had one green day in the past 8 days, so it's possible you're a little bit early on this, and it does torture you a little bit more to 107. That's why you want to buy those October. It's probably honestly more likely to November, so you don't just decay. And home construction, technically the worst place to be in the past 5 days, because volatility, if you don't count that as a space, it is home construction the worst place, and this is going into a Fed cut. So just be careful. Use stop losses if you want, or price it for max loss. But I think this could go if you give this time to about Halloween, Thanksgiving time. All right. And then the next one, we highlight this as well. There's not a ton of losers in the space. You have volatility down 3 1/3%. You got home construction down 2 1/4%. And then the medical devices subsector down just about 1%. We said before a couple of days ago, I think I want to go contrarian on a couple of things that haven't been absolute star performers in the idea of that whole every squirrel gets a nut. And I kind of don't hate this. This is still going up by about it's flat now, the 200 days at 61 even. We've closed below it now for 3 days in a row. I don't like to see that. But I think it bases here. It might torture you a little bit, but honestly, I don't think by a ton. Like I think maybe 59.5, 59.25 at the lows. I just don't see it absolutely breaking down. I think it's starting to say, okay, and investors will step in. I just think they will. And where to will they lift this area? Probably to 62. Probably not higher than that, though. So, I mean, if you're looking for $1.70 in a play, I mean, this thing did basically nothing today. There's probably better trades. I think the home construction is a better one for a month and change out. If you want some other undiverse, non-correlated plays, medical device could be one. Note that this is obviously not liquid. You probably have to choose an actual medical devices maker. Be careful of earnings risk, or you just buy the outright stock. But just highlighting what they've been hammering the past 5 days, and this is one of the areas down 1%, not a ton, but there have been places on fire, and this has not been one of them. Top 3 trades of the past 5 days going into this, historic Federal Reserve announcement. It's been Chinese equities, or Chinese internet, number 1. Second, Ark, it's Kathy Wood's babies, and then number 3, uranium. That's how you would have crushed it going into the Federal Reserve. Absolutely unpredictable, and that's how markets go. Last thing, since this is my sign off till next Monday, we will do a year-over-year review, and this is a return to normalcy. These 3 names are what, if you look at the videos in March, April, May, June, July, these were the names I kept on talking about all the time when we did the Friday vids. Number 1, year-over-year, IBIT. 93% year over year. Okay, so from last September 17th through today, up 93%. I did remove Ethereum. We've been back and forth before. You just have to own one. You can, own some of that and some of Ethereum as well. But even now, the Ethereum returns are 92%. They're both crypto. I'm not going to include both on the show here. The idea of doing the top trades so you get absolute mega alpha from different parts of the market, uncorrelated. You wake up in your portfolio, it's high vol. One's absolutely getting cratered, and the other one's monster ripping. That's what you want to do. If you wake up and Bitcoin's down, monster, Ethereum is as well, most likely, and then up to the upside, yes, which is why we're doing it. But you want to diversify a little bit in that return when you're given the ability. And I do have 3 returns here of over 70%. So that's what we're going to do. But number 1 is IBIT. I preach IBIT. This thing peaked on August 13th at 69.89, and just an amazing chart. This has closed one day under a rising 200-day moving average, and that was April 8th, the day after the SPY 52-week low. So just absolutely, just amazing, honestly, a chart here. And it peaked, as I said, 4.5, 5 weeks ago. I think so. We did put. I have a note here on September 2nd. I said, where's the stock? Right here. I said get in under 64.5 with a target of 69.5. So that day stock was 63. Beautiful. The highest the stock got, though, after that, so it was the second, so I'm exiting basically around today, and the highest we got there was right around 67. I think that was kind of the move for now. That moved to 62 to 66, 67, a little bit less than I thought. I think for the next 2-ish weeks, I'm just not so sure. I don't. It could surprise, but I just think it's going to frustrate, and I think it's going to hug around $64. I don't think it's going to crap out or anything like that, but I do think it goes a little bit lower over the next 2 weeks. This is your year-over-year leader when it does have that 64 handle. We're not looking for it to get to 61 or 62. Truly, give it about 2 weeks. When this has a 64, you'd be lucky if you get a 63 handle. Get in because, yeah, it's heading back to 70, very likely, I believe, in October. So there's your return there. This is your year-over-year leader, 93%, IBIT. Right after that is ETH at 92%. We're not going to chart it because it's very simple. Number 2 is the ARK. We just talked about this. So this is not only having the second best week of any ETF after KWEB, it is the second best ETF, hitting a 52-week high today. So this is not, some flavor of the week or a flash in the pan either, obviously. Totally believe in ARK. Just wouldn't chase it here. Similar to exactly what I said about IBIT. Give it about 2-ish weeks. What we said for the handle for IBIT, 60, whatever it was, 64, 63. This, ideally, you get 76, and then up and away for ARK going into next year. It looks great. And then number 3, we pound the table on this, is the gold miners. So as we were saying, in Q2, Q3, you got to own Bitcoin, ARK, and gold miners, and you're kind of covered. To a degree, you kind of are. It's obviously a very volatile portfolio, but this has absolutely been crushing 2025. Would not chase GDX here. Tremendous looking chart. This thing peaked 2 days ago at 70.76. And now it did get rejected off $70, and they closed it, I'd say mid-range here, but you got a tall shadow. I think this will also descend over the next 2 weeks. I think you're going to head to about 65 even, and then you should enter. That's my call for gold miners. So yeah, a bit more digestion. Some animal spirits could take this stuff higher, of course. Some areas, global markets, are standing room only to buy, like Chinese internet, which is crushing it. Just pick your spots, and there we have it. As I said, we will be back on Monday, September 29th, 2025, and have a rockin' rest of the time. Peace.